Hello, I'm Elizabeth Ashley, the Secret Healer. Welcome to my channel, list of essential oils and their uses. This video is how to use Clary Sage Essential Oil. Now, it's part of a series of videos because I've written a book about Clary Sage Essential Oil, which you can find on Amazon. By the way, it's available in ebook and paperback, but as you can see, it's not one of my thickest ones, but there's plenty of information there. So what we don't want to do is overwhelm you. So I've split it down into a series of videos. So have a look in the description below if you haven't already found it, for what is Clary Sage Essential Oil good for. That will talk about the specific conditions I would use Clary Sage for. In this video, we're going to talk about how do we use it. So things like safety, dilution, any kind of situations where we need to be careful of it, and we'll look at some little ideas of ways of putting it with other essential oils. There are 2 more videos within this series that I've recorded today. If you're interested in hormonal balance, so whether that be fertility, menopause, menstruation, yeah, those are the main ones. Have a look at the description and you'll be able to jump straight to that. Period pains, that stuff. And then lastly, if you're pregnant, congratulations, and you want to know about how to use Clary Sage Essential Oil in labour. Oh my goodness, I hear you. I remember being at this point myself and could not wait for it to be over. So there is a video down there for you, because really that's just between you and I, girls. We'll get a little bit intimate on that video. And just finally, there is an old video that I'm going to put a link to down below, which is Clary Sage versus Sage Essential Oil. What's the differences? Why are we having to be careful about not getting them mixed up? And that's quite a nice video, even though it's quite old, but relevant to you. So here, let's get into it then. So how to use Clary Sage Essential Oil. Let's just do a quick recap. So things that it's good for. It's antispasmodic. It's hormonal. It's anxiolytic, so it reduces anxiety. Antidepressant. Very good for high blood pressure. Excellent for skin if you've got greasy skin in particular. And yeah, labour. Oh yeah, antispasmodic we're going to talk about in a minute. But if you think of things like period pains or restless legs. So how do we use it? What in terms of dilution? Well, with every essential oil that we use, we want to be diluting it in some manner. Usually in these kind of situations, a carrier oil is great. Any kind of carrier oil, vegetable oil, fixed oil. So olive oil, sunflower oil, evening primrose, anything like that is great. And we use at a maximum dilution of 3% for Clary Sage. So how do we work that out? Well, because I'm always lazy, I use the teaspoon method. It's foolproof. So get your teaspoon. If you put 5 mils, which is a teaspoon of carrier oil in there, what you'll have, if you imagine that a mil of carrier oil works out to around 20 drops of carrier. It's not an exact science because of the viscosity of the oil. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but it's pretty reliable. So 20 drops to a mil, 5 mil becomes 100 drops. And if you want to work out a percentage, then that becomes very easy, doesn't it? So we're doing 3%, which is 3 out of 100. So 3 drops in my 100 drops of carrier. So teaspoon, drop, drop, drop. That would be the right concentration for an adult, a strong and robust adult. If you are dealing with somebody who is in a weakened state, let's think about this. Somebody with a bad back, an old man with a bad back, and he's having bad cramps, or maybe sciatica, and he's weakened, then we would say just 2%. So 2 drops in your teaspoon. And if you were going for a little child, can't think of a situation why would. Restless legs, yeah, restless legs. 1% dilution, just 1 drop of essential oil in that teaspoon of carrier. Safety wise, it's a very easy oil to use. Can't think of any contraindications with other conditions. Can't think of any contraindications with medicines. So just use easily, except if you are pregnant. Now, estrogen controls your hormonal cycle. It drops right down in pregnancy. Progesterone runs your pregnancy. What we don't want to do is introduce estrogen, because estrogen causes contractions, and Clary Sage works by being a uterine tonic. Yeah, so if you are wanting to get pregnant, first of all, I would say have some contraception. We don't want to be using essential oils while we're trying to get pregnant. But if we're doing it in that period beforehand, wrong word to use, period, you know what I mean, that set of time beforehand, what will happen is if you use Clary Sage with things like rose, myrrh, jasmine, what they do is they make this beautiful toned uterus. So it's like you've been lifting weights with your womb. But what we don't want to do then is when baby's in there, because when the contractions start, then it's going to push baby out. And that's why people say to use it in labour. So officially, we would say do not use in the first 37 weeks of pregnancy. I actually think don't use it while you're pregnant. There are lots of other better oils that you can use. But have a look in my video about labour. You'll find that useful if you're pregnant. Very safe for children, safe around the cats, safe around the dogs. So diffuse at will. Only thing I would say is don't drink when you're using it. If you watch the first video, you'll know that the ancient literature says it provoketh to venery. So we're talking like the stuff that brings venereal disease, you know, brazen. We don't want it. But anyway, forget the uninhibited behaviour, wanton allure, which of course you have. I'm telling you now, the next morning, it's not just your spirit that regrets it. Oh my goodness, it gives you such a headache. But it can make you quite hallucinate as well. So yeah, don't mix with beer, particularly beer. So just to recap then, so we were talking about antispasmodic. So let's think about some ideas for this. So we talked about our poor old man with the bad back. What would I use with it? I'd probably use some lavender. So I would go Clary Sage for the spasm. I would use some Roman chamomile, also antispasmodic but anti-inflammatory. I would also use some lavender, analgesic, but also antidepressant. You know, these things, you know yourself, if you've been in pain for a long time, oh, it just wears you down. And I'm producing a course about how to treat pain with essential oils. I teach practitioners how to do it, but I thought I'd make something for the general public. And Clary Sage comes up a lot because, oh, you know, cramps and spasms. So I think if it were me, I would go lavender, Clary Sage, juniper, because it flushes out the joints, gets rid of all the toxicity. So, you know, if you have, did you know muscles are made up of fibres? Yeah. And for them to work effectively, they have to be able to move across each other. But if you overwork, if you, I don't know, run a marathon and you haven't trained for it, well, you give yourself a heart attack in the first place. But what happens is, when, as a byproduct of the change of energy in the muscles, it secretes what's called a lactic acid. And lactic acid can go like crystals. If you've got something like gout, you get uric acid. And these are like, well, try it now. Roll your head. Can you feel that crunching? Mine definitely crunches. There's no massage therapists about. If you can hear that and feel that, that is your acid crystals that have got crunchy. Delicious, isn't it? But juniper's the deal to get rid of that. So for our person with black backache, lavender, Clary Sage, juniper. Or if it was sciatica and it was nerve pain, I'd use rosemary, which is a specific for nerve pain, but you'd have to just be careful of any contraindications with blood pressure, epilepsy, psychosis, anything like that. Incidentally, if you're interested in making your own recipes and you're not confident, I have a product that you may find interesting. You may have seen these Tongue of the Trees cards. There's the Clary Sage one. And to go with these, there is what's called the Recipe Hub. So in it is around about 160 essential oil recipes, videos like this, where I go, right, we would have 6 drops of this, 2 drops of this. If you had this condition, we would change this oil for that oil, go much more deeply into the safety side, and also things like carrier oils and how to make your own bases, stuff like that. Now, it's a monthly subscription. If you have a look in the link below, you'll be able to see that link that launches at the end of June. When I have my birthday and become officially a crone, I will become this wise old woman that imparts my recipes to you. So you'll be able to see. But we haven't done the videos yet for Clary Sage. I think they're coming next month. But I can tell you there are around about 10 recipes in there already for Clary Sage, just because they've been picked up from other recipes. So, for example, for period pain, we use lavender and geranium and Clary Sage, and we've done lavender and we've done geranium, so the recipes are already in there, so you might enjoy that. Back to this recipe here then. I promised I would tell you about Restless Leg Syndrome. So, oh my goodness, I hate it. I used to, Mum always used to say it was growing pains when I was a kid, but I'm not, well, I'm growing outwards, but I'm not really growing anymore, but they still happen, and they're definitely worse when I'm tired. So I have created, and this is one of the recipes that you'll find in the Recipe Hub. I use Clary Sage, lavender, and valerian. So valerian is just like, well, the constituents of it were synthesized to make the foundations of Valium, and it kind of zonks you out. And the fact that you go to sleep kind of overrides the cramps of the restless legs. But the Clary Sage is very good at easing all of the cramping, and the lavender is soothing and analgesic. And the magic ingredient actually isn't the Clary Sage, it's Epsom salts. Magnesium. I get on my soapbox because I really believe in the power of magnesium. It's skin absorbed by best. So just having it in the bath and just lying down for 20 minutes, at least 20 minutes if you didn't know that, in the bath, then that really helps. So, and I would only go 1 drop of each, 1 drop Clary Sage, 1 drop lavender, 1 drop valerian. And a scoop, whatever that scoop would be to hand, usually a tablespoon, in the bath each night, and sleep like a queen. Does the queen sleep? I don't know. Sleep like a baby. I talked about skin, didn't I? So, very, very good for greasy skin. If you have... There's 2 main oils I use for greasiness. One is lavender, one is Clary Sage. I use lavender for teenage grimy skin. If you use it on any other skin, it's too drying. So what's interesting is if you're maybe you are one of these people that puts lavender in your bath all of the time, and you haven't noticed that your skin has gone very dry, and you're thinking, wow, it's really drying this out. It is the lavender that's doing it. This is why. So your skin, in each like pore of your skin, there is a little tiny hair follicle and a sebum gland at the base of the hair. And the sebum gland secretes sebum, which is like an oily protection, antibacterial protection that covers your skin. So that looks nice and healthy if you've got it intact. But what lavender does is it tells the sebum glands, you're making too much here. You need to stop producing because there's way too much. And the sebum goes, oh right, okay, thanks for that, I will. And so what's happened with your dry skin is the lavender has spoken out of turn. So you've got rid of your greasy skin, but it's too much. So that works really well for teenagers because frankly, they're monsters with angry souls. So I've raised a few, so I know. But it's, you know, it really helps with the angst. Whereas Clary Sage doesn't necessarily do that. It's more hormonal. So if you are older and you have greasy skin or grimy skin, then Clary Sage is great. So I kind of talk through a couple of ideas. I like to do a mask. If you can get, Fragrant Earth in Glastonbury distribute our cards if you decide to buy them. And of course, they are a fantastic essential oil supplier. And they do the most beautiful blank mask base. So to make a face mask. And I tend to use a drop of cypress, a drop of Clary Sage, and some angelica root, to really get down deep and really deep cleanse the skin. And then you just leave that on for 10 minutes. Likewise, if you wanted to do an inhalation or a steam clean, just 1 drop in some boiling water. Put the towel over your head, let the steam open your pores, and the Clary Sage goes, ooh, beautiful, cleans it all out. You could make a toner. So Clary Sage with a little bit of witch hazel. So if you did like a teaspoon of witch hazel, a teaspoon of Clary Sage, and maybe a teaspoon of neroli, similar kind of properties, top it up with distilled water. There you go. That's beautiful. Always cleaning your skin, closing down the pores. And because it's astringent, watch the non-surgical facelift. Tightening the skin. Or a moisturiser, you know, a blank moisturiser base. We make lots of moisturisers in the recipe hub. We're using aqueous lotion. Absolutely dead simple. But a drop of Clary Sage, or even in your own moisturiser, just calms down the greasiness. So yeah. Oh yeah, a cleanser, that would be nice. You could just use any old cleanser that you buy from the supermarket, and then just add what's on my notes. I've put Clary Sage and carrot. Yeah, that's nice. 1 of each for each 30 ml, and just then cleanse off and wash off. So yeah, have a look, watch, sign up. If you subscribe to the channel, of course, you will see notifications of the Recipe Hub finally going live, which I have been working on all the way through the lockdown. You'll see my hair getting wilder and wilder and wilder. I really would like to see a hairdresser now. So, just as a recap then, 3% dilution, not safe until after the first 37 weeks of pregnancy. If you are interested in knowing about pregnancy, if you want to know about hormones, completely safe for the children, for the cats, for the dogs, don't drink. That is how to use Clary Sage Essential Oil.
So you get your phone, you turn it this way up, and then there's a little red subscribe button. Turn it grey by clicking it, and then there's a little bell. Click that and press all at the bottom of your phone or tablet or computer. It will say you will receive all notifications, and then there's a little hand with a thumbs up. Click that, it'll turn it blue and it says added to your liked videos, and there will be comments And if you want to, you can send a comment and say like hi's to Mum and Dad, like. And then the link to the next video will be in the description below underneath the video. So, bye!